Everything that happens now is in your hands.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2014 X-Men film X-Men Days of Future Past. The film is directed by Bryan Singer and it stars Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Hugh Jackman, James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence, Halle Berry, Nicholas Hoult, Anna Paquin, Elliot Page, Peter Dinklage, Shawn Ashmore, Evan Peters, and I could go on and on and on. Basically, there's a lot of people in this. Right. Okay, the film follows the classic X-Men characters initially, the Patrick Stewart's and Ian McKellen's and Hugh Jackman's, and it's set in the future, and there has been a terrible war. There has been these machines called Sentinels that have been created to hunt down and kill mutants, and they are able to do so by adapting to their powers. And mutants are now on the brink of extermination, but also it's a very bleak future. So they look to Logan to head back into the past, into the 1970s, to reconnect with the X-Men of that age in order to stop Raven, Mystique, played by Jennifer Lawrence, from killing Trask, played by Peter Dinklage, who is the original scientist that creates these Sentinels. If they could stop her from assassinating him, these Sentinels will never be created and the future will be secured. Right, what are my thoughts on X-Men Days of Future Past? Well, I think it's very clear, I think, to most people that follow the X-Men franchise that this is one of the strong entries into the franchise. It's a very well put together film. It's very entertaining. We know that Bryan Singer knows this franchise in and out, knows his characters very, very well, and he manages to blend and combine the characters from the original X-Men films and the newer ones superbly, because they wanted to do a film where they could combine both eras, if you like, of the X-Men characters, the Patrick Stewarts and the James McAvoys and Fassbenders and stuff, and do it in a way that makes sense. And I think they absolutely did that here. Now, this again is one of those films that if you analyse it too much, and pull at the strings too much, it'll kind of all fall apart. I'm always one of the belief that if you're going into a film like this, or a Marvel film as well, or a DC film, or anything, that you've got to kind of suspend your disbelief a little bit, otherwise you're just not going to enjoy these type of films. So yeah, I mean, if you don't think about it too much, the time traveling aspect of this film, then you will enjoy it a huge amount, because it is very, very entertaining. I think the whole concept of sending him back in time, Logan, and he's the only one that can do it because of his healing abilities, sort of thing, because it's a arduous task to send somebody back in time, and it's Elliot Page that is able to do that sort of thing in the future by kind of controlling their mind, sort of thing, and send them back into a previous version of themselves. It's really good, and then we get to see, the after effects of X-Men First Class. James McAvoy's character, and he's in a pretty bad place because of what happened at the end of First Class. You know what I mean? He's kind of turned his back on his powers. He's a mess, really. So he's actually got his hands full, Logan, to kind of bring him round to his way of thinking, the fact that the future's in peril and they kind of need his help. And the way they kind of get Magneto back on board after what happened at the end of First Class is very, very good too. This rift between him and Xavier. But for me as well, I think one of the highlights of this film. There's a few, but I love. I just love the whole sequence with Evan Peters as Quicksilver. I just think it was just so brilliantly done. And thankfully we get to see him a little bit more in future films, but I don't think he ever gets to top his appearance in this film. The whole thing, when they're getting Magneto out of prison is just so fabulously done and brilliantly filmed. You completely buy into these special effects of Quicksilver and his speed and the way he kind of gets him out of that situation. It's just done so brilliantly. I don't think I've ever seen someone's powers portrayed so convincingly as they do Quicksilver's in this film. It is just brilliantly done. I absolutely loved the idea of these Sentinels, the fact that they can adapt. I love the design of them both in the past. The way they look in the 70s, I think they look really retro and very, very cool. And then the way they look in the future, how they've kind of been adapted to with newer technologies and stuff, and they've made use of the of Raven's powers, Mystique's powers, because that's the whole thing. You see, if they don't stop Raven from kind of assassinating Trask, she gets kidnapped, and her mutant powers are adapted into these Sentinels, which is how they are able to adapt to whichever mutant they are facing. And it's it's a brilliant idea, and it makes them unbeatable, and you get to see that in full effect in the future war. Because it does blend both aspects of the story very, very well here. Yes, there's an awful lot of this film that's set in this past, but the bit that's set in the future as well is really expertly done, I think, by Singer. And you get to see these cool mutants taking on these Sentinels and coming off second best. And it's a really, really fantastic way that they blend both the future and the past sort of thing. So this is, without a doubt, one of the strongest X-Men films out there. After rewatching it, and I went to the cinema to see this, and I've seen it a couple of times since, and I've rewatched it for this review. One of the most interesting aspects of this film, even though he's such a huge prominent character in this film, is Hugh Jackman's Logan, doesn't actually get to do a great deal in this film. He's kind of just there. It doesn't do an awful lot in the past. And the final battle at the end of the film, he does even less, because he kind of gets zoomed off and dumped into the ocean sort of thing. So I just thought that was quite interesting. I thought, well, he's obviously such a big part of the film, Hugh Jackman, but Wolverine actually isn't a pivotal character here. It's actually focused on the other X-Men and their abilities, which I thought was pretty interesting, to be fair, because I think there's a lot of people out there, I think, that think Logan or Wolverine was kind of made the main character of the X-Men franchise, and you can't really argue he was, and for a good reason as well, you could argue too, because he's always been probably, in many people's eyes, the most popular X-Men character. So I thought Bryan Singer kind of balanced that really well, Wolverine's part in this film. Yes, he's pivotal, but he doesn't once in the past, he doesn't do a huge amount. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Looking forward to the next one. I actually am also a big fan of the next one. I know people don't think it's one of the best, and but I remember going to the cinema, seeing the next one, and really enjoying that one too. So thanks guys for joining me for this review. Stay tuned obviously for plenty more reviews and content, and I will of course be back very, very soon.